Hi, welcome to the hot seat. I'm Josephine Moon. Today I am with fellow Sunshine Coast author Kerr. Welcome, Kay.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you here. I'm so excited for your new book, so I can't wait to talk to you about it and hear all about it. So would you like then to start by telling us all what your beautiful new book's about?
Yeah, sure. So I've only got an advanced copy here, but this is what it sort of looks like. It's called Love and Autism. It's a narrative nonfiction that interweaves 5 autistic people's lives, following them from childhood through their life to adulthood, and looking at, I guess, all the different ways they love their different relationships, friends, family, romantic, their special interests, love of animals, that kind of thing. But most of all, I guess, exploring their journey to self-acceptance, self-love, all the ups and downs. And it's interwoven with a little bit of research and a couple of essays and other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Does it have that love on the spectrum vibe about it?
I hope that if somebody watched Love on the Spectrum and loved it, then they would pick up this book and learn new things and engage and love these people that I've interviewed as well. So I think that sort of celebratory, community building, there's lots of elements that I definitely hope would be similar and that people would like.
Absolutely. I'm sure people are going to love it. Because I've read, other books that you've written, and you're a great writer and you really engage people and draw people into the characters. So I'm sure everyone's going to love it. And you've been writing for a long time, not just books. That's sort of your more recent thing, but you've been a journalist before that. When was the moment you knew you wanted to be a writer?
It's so tricky because I was the kid that was making books and drawing the pictures and writing the stories from a really, really young age, and a massive reader. And English was always my favorite subject, all those kind of typical writer things that people say. But I never conceptualized writing or being an author as a job that you could really do. It was very much like if you were good at English, you became an English teacher or you became a journalist, because they were kind of like the ways you could get paid for, loving reading and writing and that kind of thing. So I went into journalism, which was like your guidance counselor gives you a direction to go. And I took that very literally, and became a journalist. And it was probably 5 or 6 years into that. And my, personally heading into sort of burnout, not knowing I was autistic as well, definitely played into that. And just not being able to keep going with that. And then a colleague of mine, Katie Rowney, she wrote a book and published it, and it was incredible. It was called Front Page News. And it just kind of made me realize, like, oh, you can just do that. Like, you can just write a book and then submit it somewhere and something might happen. And that really was like eye-opening for me, and just gave me something that I could work on really proud. Like, I don't even think I told my partner at the time that I was working on a manuscript. It just became this little thing that I could secretly do for myself at the end of the day, or, the beginning of the day if I was up early. So it wasn't until I started to explore that side of things that I felt like, oh, I could, like, being an author is a real thing. But being a journalist felt very separate from that. And now this book, I guess, has kind of come full circle, because it's combining those two aspects of my life, the being a journalist, the interviews and the research, which I love. Like, there were so many elements of journalism that I loved. But then also the narrative, like the storytelling, the weaving together of the different stories. So it definitely feels like it's drawn from both of those places instead of those being really separate.
Yeah, absolutely. I can appreciate that too, having started in journalism as well. And they're very, very different mediums, and it's great that you can combine the skills from both, because they are quite different skills, but they can come together so well like that.
And I think it makes you, like, if you do have a journalism background, I think it makes you quite good at being edited as well, which is really a handy skill.
Yes,
because
not as precious about your
yeah,
or not precious. I should say precious. Maybe not as sensitive, because
you're used to it a bit more, about just big red lines being drawn through your work and that kind of thing is.
Which is so fun. When was the moment you knew you wanted to write this particular book?
This book kind of came out of the blue. I was doing promotion for my second YA novel, Social Q. It was in and around that time that was being published, and, you know, writing op-eds. I do a little bit of freelance work, but because my books have been quite close together the last couple of years, I haven't done as much freelance work as I would previously. So I was approached by the publisher about a nonfiction and what that might look like, and whether I would be interested in working with them on a proposal. But it wasn't in no way guaranteed that they would pick it up either. It was just kind of like an exploratory thing. And that was really exciting, but also really nerve-wracking, because it's kind of like, well, who says I can write this book? And like that kind of fear, it made me kind of have a knee-jerk reaction of just like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then having a little bit of time away from it, thinking about it, talking to my agent about it, and sort of turning that into, well, if you did write this book, what would you want to include in it? What would you want it to look like? What kind of stories and concepts would you want it to engage with? And who would be the people you would speak to? Because I knew very much that I didn't want to write like a memoir, like a straight memoir. I sort of wanted to explore other people's stories. And I think part of that was having done the 2 YA books back to back and lots of interviews and stuff, and talking about myself and my story. And I was really excited about the idea of talking about other people's stories. So I think once I got over the sort of overwhelm of, I've never done nonfiction before, it's too many words, it's too scary kind of, I figured out a way into it, which was, well, like just curiosity and how would that look if I were to do it, and letting it be a hypothetical thing until I'd worked out what the concept was, and then getting excited about that once that was something. Because, you know, I think nonfiction versus fiction from that sort of publishing side of things is very different. You know, with fiction, I wrote a book, then I sold a book, and then I wrote another book, and then I sold another book. Whereas with nonfiction, it's sold off a proposal and then you write it. So that sort of flipping of when you're writing and when you're working with the publisher, I know it's different, like different people have different arrangements with fiction, but for me, that's how I'd done it. So that was really nerve-wracking, just the unknown of that. So once I got my head around it all, and especially as the interview started to come together and the book started to come together, I started to get really excited about it, and see the big picture of it all a little bit more, rather than big scary thing that I hadn't done before.
Yeah, absolutely. When you sit down to write, are there things you need to do to get yourself in that headspace? I think particularly if you're feeling nervous about a project too, sometimes, you know, we create these little rituals and things we do to make that bridge basically from, you know, this world to that world. Do you have anything like that you use?
I think I need to break everything down into lots of little tasks. I think I love a checklist. I love a to-do list, like breaking down each phase of the writing project into what I need to do, especially when there are so many things like lining up interviews, you know, recording interviews, transcribing interviews, research. There's so many different elements, so many balls to keep in the air, and to make sure that you're across all of them. And then things like copyright and, you know, doing my like research, my annotations, like just so much that I had to do that. I think I just have endless checklists. And I do like a daily, this is what I want to do today. And whether that's word count related or not, whether that's more just, I want to have a look at this segment and I want to email these people back and I want to research this a little bit more. And then just rather than looking at, you have 70,000 plus words to write in X amount of time, it needed to be day to day, week to week, month to month, so that, and then by breaking it down, you see if you continue following those steps, the end result is getting to that bigger picture, but it's just not as overwhelming.
Yeah, it sounds like you did it well.
Very like forest for the trees though, just like tree by tree by tree until the whole thing is done.
Yeah. How do you want your readers to feel when they get to the end of this book?
All the things. No, I hope it engages people emotionally, whether that's, you know, making them feel seen, making them understand more, making them feel connected with the people that I've interviewed, making them feel hopeful or sad, like any of the feelings. I just wanted it to emotionally connect, because I feel like so much of the discourse around autism and neurodivergence is clinical and medical and removed. So I wanted it to feel just emotional and real and like connected to the people as people, and engaged and invested in their lives as well. So anything across the board of feelings would be lovely.
Yeah, I'm sure this book's going to be a real eye-opener for a lot of people, and also a real source of discussion for a lot of people, and opening conversations and opening just people's ideas about neurodivergent relationships. Yeah.
I hope so.
Great, but I'm already proud of you for doing it.
Oh, thank you. I'm proud of you too.
Is there a book that you've ever read where you've gone, wow, I wish I had written that book? That book is just, it's meant so much to me, or it's just so important, and really wish I had the skills on. And
yeah. I think Late Bloomer by Clem Basso, when I read that, I'm so thankful that book is in the world, and I read it, and from a technical standpoint went, oh, this is incredible. This is so brilliantly written, so informative, so warm, so engaging, so funny. I'm just really glad in terms of the, autism and memoir space that book exists. And it's one of the books that, if people are asking me for books in that space, it's my first recommendation. I go back to it and flip through different segments, thinking and working through different things. So that's, I don't know if I can claim, I wish I wrote it, but I'm glad that it exists, and that, yeah,
it's a great book. I loved it. That's a great pick. Is there a book or books from your childhood that have made a real impact on you and maybe influenced your writing journey to date?
I was such a big escapist reader as a kid. So like Narnia books, Enid Blyton books, Lord of the Rings books, and it's so far away from what I write now, because I write in contemporary space and realism. So it's definitely not influenced my work in that straight line kind of a way, thematically. But I think the idea of those unreal world, those magical places and people finding themselves in there, I sometimes feel like the flip of that. Like I feel like I'm a little bit lost in the world in some way. So I try to write my characters in a way that connects with people in the same way that I connected to those characters growing up. So different, but yeah, definitely influenced my love of reading as well, and of that sort of feeling of escaping into a book in a way that I think is common for lots of people, neurodivergent or not neurodivergent, but definitely offered solace at a time that was tricky. Teenage years and that kind of thing were tricky times. So
yeah, there's so many books we read in childhood that I think that just stay with us for life, because they have that emotional connection, or they're attached to that point in time when we just needed to find that book at that time.
And I think I read so much Jane Austen as a kid as well, which definitely I feel like has influenced my love of reading and writing and talking about love and relationships. But I just think that's the thing that I always come back to with what I love to read, whether it's a comfort read or what I like to watch or what I want to engage with. It's definitely stemmed from there.
What are you reading now?
I just finished Unnecessary Drama by Nina Kenwood, which is a YA rom-com set in a share house in Melbourne. That Nina's just writes beautiful, awkward, funny romance in that space that I love. And it was on an audiobook, which I loved as well while I was traveling around, and I just think audiobooks are incredible. So it was really nice.
Lovely. Yes,
highly recommend.
I am championing audiobooks at every turn. I just think they're so awesome and so versatile and so flexible and so accessible and just all the things, really. And
it's just nice being read to as well. Like, I just love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are you working on now? What can we look forward to coming next?
I am working on mostly promotional stuff for Love and Autism at the moment. So I started, a couple of thousand words of a new project at the end of last year, but it's been a pretty hectic start to the year. So I haven't jumped back into anything. And I think having 3 books in 3 years back to back has been really incredible, but they've all been pandemic books as well. So it's been an interesting, strange, weird, wonderful time. So I think my biggest sort of mindset and plan moving forward is just, I'm going to have a little bit of, give myself a break, not have a new contract signed before the previous book is out, just have a bit of breathing space and let this project that it's been like bouncing around in my head for months, let it just be for a little while and see what happens. And I think it'll be better for it. So
fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me in the hot seat today. I've loved chatting with you. And as I said, I can't wait for your book to come out, and I highly recommend it. Haven't even read it, but I highly recommend it. And because I just know that it's going to be great. So thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
See ya.